Everyone, today I'm going to talk about Bitcoin's price and where it's at in the market cycle. This is my third Bitcoin cycle. I was around in 2013, 2017, and now, so I'm going to hop into different ways ways we can think through what Bitcoin might do the rest of this year. Also, I'm going to address FUD about China. A lot of people have been worried about China banning Bitcoin and what that means for the price. I'm going to dive in and provide a little bit more color there. Before we begin, I want to give a shout out to Ledn. Ledn is a sponsor of this channel. They're one of the best places to lend and borrow against your Bitcoin. So you can lend out your Bitcoin and earn yield, or borrow against your Bitcoin and get some dollars for whatever you'd like to go use it for. Definitely recommend you check them out. Check out the link below. Okay, let's hop in. And want to say, I just hit 30,000 subs. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate the support. Let me know what you think. Definitely provide comments below and I'll make sure to reply to them. And jumping into the topic today, I want to switch over to sharing my screen. So this is the price of Bitcoin. Now, a lot of people have seen this chart before, but I wanted to highlight, how Bitcoin's price moves. Like, we've seen Bitcoin go through these different eras. And what's funny is a lot of people don't remember that in 2013, we actually had two bull runs. And that's what I think we're seeing right now. We're seeing that initial bull run that we had earlier this year. And then we've got a bit of a lull, and it seems like it's taking forever, right? It seems like we've been going sideways in price action for a long time. But when we look at, on a long time scale, when we look at 2013, is about the same amount of time. And there's actually a chart here to show you exactly what that looks like. If we look at the same sort of time frame from the blue line, which is 2013, or 2012 through 2013, and now, white line is us now. We are very much tracking along that path where we've got that big surge in the beginning, a lot of sideways chop, and then I think in the next month or two, things will really start to pick up. Now, let's put it this way. If I could predict the future, I'd be a trillionaire. But, and so I can't say that I can predict the future, but history certainly rhymes. And I think there are some insights here to be gleaned. So yeah, again, I'm not saying that this is going to happen. I'm saying that this might happen if we look at historical data and use that to predict the future, which is always, of course, very, very tricky, but nonetheless super interesting. And I think if that pattern plays out, we could see in the next couple months things get really exciting. Conversely, maybe cycles are getting longer and this goes a little bit longer sideways, and then early 2022 things really start to pick up. And when we go look at other market fundamentals, I love to look at Willy Woo and Will Clemente. These two guys are geniuses. Definitely recommend you follow them on Twitter or subscribe to their newsletters. I found this chart from Will to be really interesting because it goes and talks about, earlier this year, or I think this was, late 2020, before Bitcoin had its big surge, when he looks at different on-chain metrics, and now he's got this is a little bit of a joke, the Rick Astley joke. But when you look at some on-chain metrics, we see that, essentially Bitcoin is, undergoing a lot of basic fundamentals in terms of price and price movement. So, when we look at the supply shock metrics, which they compile this through Glassnode, when we look at some supply shock metrics, we saw Bitcoin sell off very recently. A lot of people have, I think, gotten a little bearish, but we're seeing on-chain fundamentals be very, very strong, where more and more supply is being bought and locked up by long-term hodlers, rather than sloshing around and being, actively traded. So there's all sorts of metrics that look at how many people are buying and hodling Bitcoin and how much Bitcoin is being sent to exchanges because people want to go sell it. We don't know exactly what they're going to go do when they move it to an exchange, but it's an indication of some intent to go trade it. And if they currently own it, then they might sell it. And so these are the couple charts that I think this week from Willy that I found very interesting in terms of just kind of talking about how Bitcoin is really strong fundamentally, and Willy's got a great newsletter that goes deep into this. So definitely recommend you check it out. It's paid for, so otherwise I would have shared more charts from it, but I can't. Wanted to call out the really good report from Will Clemente. And so this is the Blockware Market Intelligence report, and they dive into a lot of on-chain fundamentals. And some of the ones I found really interesting. This is one of my favorites. Before we begin, I want to give a shout out to Choice, one of my sponsors. As most of you know, when you hodl, you don't have to pay taxes. But what if I told you that you could hodl, and when you eventually sell your Bitcoin, you wouldn't have to pay any taxes then? Well, I didn't think that was possible until I found a Choice IRA. Choice is the best retirement account to set up for Bitcoiners that lets you buy and hold Bitcoin in stocks without paying a dime to the government. And how does that work? Choice is an IRA. They have IRAs and Roth IRAs, which means it's a special type of retirement account where you don't pay taxes if you hodl until a certain age, along with some other stipulations. And the best part, you can self-custody your Bitcoin with Choice, which means that you don't have to trust Choice or anyone else with your Bitcoin or your private keys. It's the perfect retirement solution for Bitcoiners. The best time to start stacking sats was 11 years ago. The second best time is today. Search StackSats in the App Store or choiceapp.io/held. Link is included in the description below. Go check it out right now. This was actually created by, so it was reported on in that newsletter, but it was created by Unchained Capital. And HODL waves look at the movement of Bitcoin based on when was the last time it moved. And we are seeing the highest ever position ever in recorded Bitcoin history of that 93% of coins have not moved. And I forget what the time period is, but I think it's that 93% of Bitcoins haven't moved in, I think it's like in a couple of weeks or something like that. So that's the highest rate ever. Normally there's a lot of like liquid churning coins being sent to exchanges and bought and sold. And so what we're seeing is the supply becoming more and more liquid. And Will Clemente has called that a supply shock. What happens is there's a huge increase in demand, supply doesn't respond, and the price goes accordingly upwards. And so I think we've seen a lot of really cool metrics like that. He's got some other ones as well where he looks at the last time prices were realized. And so essentially last time where the coins were moved or traded, or what was the price when the coins were last moved. And so, if we start to break through the 50K, 60K barrier here, there's some of these folks, like the folks here, are a little bit underwater. Once we break through that, and we break past like 65K, things really start to go crazy because everyone starts to, although people who hold Bitcoin are less inclined to sell it because they expect the price to go higher, demand increases because they expect the price to go higher too. And that's how we see this really intense movement upwards. And, to dig in a little bit here, I think touching on, there's a couple more points that they have. They've got tons of different charts in here. I definitely recommend you check them out. I'll include a link below for you to go explore further. But they've got a ton of different on-chain metrics, which I think are super interesting to describe, what's going on with Bitcoin that are owned and held. Now, I think a lot of people have heard recently, and I think a lot of the recent dip we had this last week was due to China FUD. So China declares all cryptocurrency transactions illegal. So what's funny about this is I have heard China banning Bitcoin since 2013. Literally the exact same headline, the exact same story. It's fucking bullshit. China has banned Bitcoin dozens of times. And each time they ban it, which they don't really ban it, they kind of ban it. And who gives a shit anyways? It's only one country. Bitcoin bounces back. And so this was a really cool chart I found on Twitter where someone marked in red all the times where China banned Bitcoin, the biggest times that they've banned Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't give a shit. Bitcoin's going to go to the moon. And some of these times when China bans Bitcoin, like here and here, these are big bullish indicators because it shakes out all the weak hands who were afraid about various, whether it be China or something else. And they use that as an excuse to sell Bitcoin. And then we see it rocket up. And since we're in the middle of a bull run versus on the tail, on the end of a bull run, we're right in the middle. I think we're going to see something more like this, where this shakes out the weak hands sell, and then when the price moves up, there's less and less people inclined to sell. Only the strongest hands remain. And this was a really cool chart that was put together about how these are all the time the big moments when China banned Bitcoin and what percentage Bitcoin is up since that moment. China banning Bitcoin is irrelevant to Bitcoin's success. Bitcoin is going to do perfectly fine without China. And so when we look at Bitcoin's performance afterwards, it has done phenomenally well. And so, yeah, I don't think we have anything to worry about with China. Bitcoin's fundamentals are super strong. And I think we're in a great setup in terms of a kind of a replication of 2013. Definitely feels like that vibe. People are getting bored. They're like, it's never going to go up again. That's the moment when you least expect it and things start to change. So I think later this year is going to get super exciting. I still think we're in the middle of a bull run. If you liked what you saw here, give me a like or subscribe. Definitely throw me some comments. I'll be answering all of them. And I really appreciate you watching. Cheers.